Yo, what's good? Easy Breezy Ebe here, and this is my review slash discussion video for Schindler's List. And if you haven't seen my reaction to it, here it is. Fuck! Why? Yeah, it was a very intense movie to watch. More than 3 hours long. So if you haven't seen my reaction to it, go ahead and click the link here. Yeah, so I just saw Schindler's List and I don't even know where to start. I don't want to get political about things or anything like that, but what I will say is we need to learn from history. We need to learn from history. We see this great atrocity that happened to over 6 million Jews died during the Holocaust, and it wasn't just Jews. Basically anybody who wasn't part of the quote-unquote Aryan race, were subjected to these atrocities. And all I'll say on that is a lot of similar things are happening around the world today. A lot of the repercussions of what happened during that time period is still being echoed today. And we need to learn from it and make sure that it doesn't happen again, and it stops happening to any race or ethnicity that's being treated differently or subjugated to atrocities just because of the color of their skin or their religion or whatever. All of that needs to stop, and we need to learn from it. And I quoted this in my reaction, and I'll quote it again here, and I hope I'm quoting it right. Elie Wiesel, who read the book Night, which is a very powerful book. If you haven't read it, one of his quotes, a famous quote, is the opposite of love is not hate, the opposite of love is indifference. So it's similar to a Martin Luther King quote that I don't have it off the top of my head, but basically just standing by the side and not doing anything about it is very similar, if not worse, than actually participating in the hate. So that's all I'll say about that. Let's get to the movie. So I want to start with the fact that I didn't really think about this as being based on a true story until sort of the end, around the time when the list was being made, and then the train with the women were directed towards Auschwitz. And for some reason, there was something that alerted me to the fact that, wait a minute, these people could survive, and these people might, which happens at the end where you see them, some of them being alive, right, still. And of course, they talk about how a lot of save a life, you save the world, right, because of you're saving their descendants as well. And it's like, I didn't think about this being a true story or based on true events. I mean, of course it's based on true events because World War II and the Holocaust, but like I didn't realize these people were real people, like by name. They were using their names at the end. You realize those are their real names, like Ishtak Stein. I think that was Ben Kingsley's character. He's a real person. Schindler is a real person, and all of them were real people. And even Goethe, who was played by Ralph Fiennes, very young in this movie, but still very good actor. I swear to God, I didn't even though his face is very distinct, like you forget that's Ralph Fiennes. And just the fact that this guy Schindler existed, right? And it's not just him. There are a few heroes, more than a few heroes during that era that helped save Jews from certain death, basically by risking their own lives. In Schindler's case, risking his wealth. It seemed like he was sort of protected in a way, but anything that went wrong, of course, he runs out of money. Or Goethe not being very naive, like not thinking that Schindler could actually not be a Nazi who believes in the final solution, is like that kind of blinded him to the fact that, oh, Schindler is just trying to scam me. That's what he thought. He was just trying to make more money and stuff like that. So he was still risking his life on that front. And even the fact at the end where he broke down because he thought he could save one more life by selling his Nazi pin, that was very powerful. And the most emotional moment, and then the other more very, very emotional moment was when you see the girl in the red jacket, because when you see her during the massacre, it's like, oh, did she survive? Where does she go in the camps? Maybe they leave it open-ended, but no, you see that red jacket again before they incinerate the body. And in the text before that scene, they say that most of these bodies were buried because of after the massacre. So you assume that she died that night, the night that Liam Neeson saw her. And I think that was also the turning point for him, where he started to go from just this money-hungry capitalist, like businessman, to just actually, not caring about his money at all. It's interesting that the womanizer part of his character, I'm getting into the character. The womanizer part of the character is also interesting. And then, of course, because it signifies the change in character, where he's a womanizer, he doesn't care about his wife, how his wife feels about his infidelities, until at the end he finally says, nobody will mistake you for a mistress, basically, ever again. But then at the very, very end, it's like during the text, what happens to them, the epilogue or whatever, it says that his marriage was not successful. So I wonder why that is. Is it because he became he was cheating on her again, or being, so that's sort of an interesting sort of, less serious note to his character, or to the whole story in general. But that was interesting. Another really interesting point that I saw during the movie was that the people in the barracks, the women, especially the women, they were talking about rumors they heard about the gas chambers, where they're sort of tricked into going to take showers, but instead of water, it would be gas that would kill them, and they're sort of not bribed, but they're given soap to make them think, oh, I'm just going to have a shower, but no, instead they get killed. And it was interesting to hear them, because it was almost like, even though they're in that situation where I feel like in their heart of hearts they thought, wow, that's crazy that's happening, but they still couldn't really believe it. Like the inhumanity, even what they've seen, their own brothers and sisters getting killed for no reason, they still couldn't believe the gas chambers, the atrocity of that. And it worked narratively, because when the women were sent to Auschwitz, and they were sent to the showers, they thought, oh, they might get gas, which was giving anxiety, even to me. And I'm not, I'm just watching. And, I can't imagine how that would have been like. It's crazy. It's hard to imagine it. Like, you can't imagine it. It doesn't. Like, even this movie is like, it's less atrocious than some of the real footage you see. And then the real footage that you can find online and stuff, even that is not even the half of it. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting how they were kept in the dark. They didn't even know, like, that gas. They couldn't even believe that the gas chambers were real, but it's been happening throughout the time they were there. Steven Spielberg, look, I talked about Steven Spielberg in the intro and how good he is at what he does. It's like nobody can even say anything about Steven Spielberg, because everything's been said about Steven Spielberg, about how good he is. And I mentioned, like, okay, he can do science fiction, he can do fantasy, he can do he can do epics like Indiana Jones, he can do dramas, and he can do fucking historical period pieces. Schindler's List might be what he's, and I knew this before watching the movie, it's probably what he'll always be known for, is Schindler's List. This movie is so good, and nothing misses. Like, he doesn't miss. Like, he can do anything basically as a director. But what I do want to say is how meaningful the shots were. Like, it's not just about the story. It's not just the fact that it's in black and white. You know, there's a reason for that. And one of the reasons was, well, of course, the theme, and one of them was the red coat. So narratively speaking as well. But like, the cinematography must be mentioned. And I want to kind of shout out the cinematographer here. I hope I'm saying this right. Janusz Kaminski. Polish cinematographer. So yeah, you know, it was great. Like it's weird to say this, but it was beautiful to watch. Okay, and I don't mean that like beautiful. I'm feeling excited that I'm seeing death, but I mean like the way things were framed, the lighting. You know, the lighting on the faces and certain moments and certain points of the film where certain expressions need to be accentuated. It was marvelous. I think even as much as the power of the movie, I have to say the cinematography was amazing. Superb. Yeah, so that, I just wanted to mention that. So Jonas Kaminski, good shit, homie. All right, so let's get to the actors. So let's start with Liam Neeson. It's crazy because when you think of Liam Neeson, and he must be, this was 93 and he wasn't young in that movie. So he was 41 in that movie. Okay, so, or 40. Liam Neeson is just an icon, man. I mean, he's Qui-Gon Jinn, he's Aslan, he's fucking the Taken guy, he's in a bunch of fucking shit, man. He's Liam Neeson. And you know, it's crazy to think almost that he's in this movie and how good his performance was in this movie. I don't know if he was nominated or if he won anything for this movie. And we'll get to Ben Kingsley in a second, but man, if his performance was great. You believe his charisma at the beginning of the movie, and you believed his sacrifice and how he meant. Like, there's a point in the movie where you don't really know if is he doing this for the Jews that is under his employment, or is he still just doing this for money? And that transition was amazing, and you see it in him, and that final piece of him breaking down before he goes on the run. I mean, look, like that's someone who, that's a professional. He's a fucking professional actor, and not in the sense that he acts in movies for a living. Like, no, like this guy is good at what he does, great at what he does, and I can't even imagine Liam Neeson not being Schindler at this point. And of course, we also have to talk about Ben Kingsley, who is also a fucking legend. I've seen Ben Kingsley in a lot of things. Look, Gandhi was mandatory viewing when I was in middle school, so that is also crazy. He won an Oscar for Gandhi. I don't know if he was nominated or won anything for this movie, but I think Liam Neeson and Ben Kingsley, I mean, they carry the whole movie. Almost. I say almost because there's a third actor I want to shout out. But Ben Kingsley and Liam Neeson, they're the heart and soul of this movie. And I think, of course, Liam Neeson is the heart of this movie because he's the main character. But Ben Kingsley, Ishtak Stein, I think his name, the soul of this movie for sure. And you're so happy to see him make it through. You're so happy for all of them to make it through this, this period. It's weird to be talking about World War II, and I know we're not in a war right now. We're in a pandemic, which is completely different. But it's like, it's weird to be living in such a sort of a world event. Like this pandemic, it's getting to the end for Western countries, but it's definitely not getting to the end for the rest of the world, and the rest of the world are still under lockdown, still having, not yet vaccinated as efficiently as Western countries are. And it's like, it's weird to be living in an era where sort of the whole world has to stop to get through something at the same time, right? And World War II is like that as well. Not even so World War One so much, because World War One was really, Europe and, a lot of the world, but, even America didn't come into it until very late. But World War II is a whole world thing, and the pandemic is a whole world thing. And like, you guys remember in early 2020 when it was just in Wuhan, and then they got a few cases on Oregon, and like people were not expecting it to be this whole global shutdown of a thing. And now I'm getting off topic from Schindler's List, but like, I feel like it's something like that where, and I mentioned this because we're almost at the end of it, like objectively speaking, of this pandemic, and eventually we'll just seamlessly go into sort of regular life again. And it's very different from the Schindler Jews. They were sort of liberated, once Germany's unconditionally surrendered. And it's just like that guy at the end, that officer who was like, "You are liberated." It's like, okay, like we need you. They're like, we need food. Where do we go? We can't go east. We can't go west. People hate us there. And it's like, well, there's a town over there you can go. And it's just like, okay, like the world turns. The world keeps turning, and it's interesting, like how societies will just, it's almost like, okay, back to regular life. Your regularly scheduled programming, get on it. And that was interesting as well. I just went on a huge tangent there. I was talking about Ben Kingsley, amazing actor. I also want to shout out Ralph Fiennes. I didn't even know he was in this movie. I knew Liam Neeson and Ben Kingsley were in this movie. I did not know Ralph Fiennes was in this movie. And even though he was young, and I wasn't sure at first, but Ralph Fiennes when you see him, I mean, he has such distinct features. Amazing performance, not character. Character is despicable. It was weird. The character was interesting because he's evil. He doesn't really know he's evil. He sees himself, everything he does is justified because he doesn't see Jews as humans. He literally thinks of them as pests. Like, this girl, she's complaining to me, shoot her in the head. This person, any problem is just shoot him. And then he doesn't even realize that he's just satiating his own sort of hunger for murder and hunger for power. And then it's thrown a curveball because he falls in love with his housemaid, which is also a weird thing. And it's like an internal conflict they give the character, but the character is already unredeemable. So it's like, it's almost pointless, but it's almost like laughing in his face, like, oh, you say they're not people, but you're in love with one, so and he was hanged. His character was hanged at the end for war crimes, obviously. But Ralph Fiennes, I wonder like how famous or prevalent he was at this time. I would be surprised if this was his first big break. I don't think so. You don't get your breaks in Steven Spielberg movies usually, which is not true of the case of the girl playing Maria in the next Steven Spielberg movie. It is her first big break, but that doesn't happen often. So great performance by Ralph Fiennes. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think objectively speaking, this is a great movie. I recommend it to everybody. I'm surprised they don't show this movie back in school when I was in school. I don't know if they still do that. They showed us the Anne Frank movie. Of course they can't show us anything too graphic, that's probably why. But and then the Anne Frank movie was like, it was made in the 50s or something like that. It was a ridiculously old movie. And I just realized that I just found out that even the Anne Frank book is missing a lot of things from the original diary, because the father didn't want to paint sort of a negative picture on I guess he wanted Anne Frank to be perceived as pure as possible, so he took out a lot of things, because she was, if you know about Anne Frank, she was hiding until she died in Auschwitz, right? And then she died like right before they were liberated, I think. But the father survived. I think was the only member of the family to survive. But she was like she was a teenager, so she was sort of hitting puberty. So there was a lot of things on that that were taken out of the book. I wonder if there's anything else that was taken out of the book. Not because I'm not criticizing it or anything. I just wonder like what things are missing, and it would be interesting to know. But we had to read Night as well by Elie Wiesel. I think that's how you say his name. Which is like a young teenager reading Night is sort of an insane thing to force people to do. But it's history. It's an important part of history. It's one of the greatest modern atrocities that you could do. It's not by the long shot the only crazy thing that's been happening. Look, there's really, really bad things happening around the world right now. So I guess on that note, I want to say, this is a learning experience. This is something that you need to take into account, and learning from history should, help us as a society progress and go forward the right way. Unfortunately, though, a lot of people ignore history and then repeat it for their own personal agendas and stuff. So, that's what's unfortunate about it. Back to the movie. A lot of the death scenes was graphic, of course, but they seem so realistic. And I think it's like if there was CGI, it's very, very minimal. Most of it is practical, and it's crazy to see. Of course, I don't know. How do you even research that? How do you even research how a bullet hits someone, and I'm sure there's actual footage and stuff like that, but I just think that whoever had to make those prosthetics and the blood squirting stuff and all of that, and whoever had to make it as real as possible had to have reference, and that's a crazy, insane job to do. Another thing, touching upon the reality and how this is based on reality, I guess one of the things that stuck out to me though is when they get to Auschwitz, and a lot of the actors, it seemed, did lose a lot of weight for those scenes where they have to, take off their clothes and show how emaciated they are, and kudos to them because that's insanely hard to do. But if you've seen the real photos of the prisoners at Auschwitz, and look, don't do it if you don't have the stomach for it, but it's 100 times worse how emaciated. It reminds me of what's happening now in Yemen and all these children that are being starved because of the political conflict there. So it's just it's so hard to talk about. But so yeah, I guess that's really, I don't really have too much to say else about it. I recommend it for anybody who wants to watch a good movie, who wants to learn more about what happened during the Holocaust, and if you want to watch one of Steven Spielberg's best movies, definitely watch it. But you need 3 hours and 30 minutes, because if not, you're gonna have to watch it in a couple sittings. So yeah, and I know that a lot of the times in movies, they change things or leave things out or deviate things, change things from what actually happened for the sake of making it a better story, a better film, more powerful. If you know any of those things, go ahead and hit me in the comments below. I would be very interested to know if there are any deviations to what actually happened, or interesting fact or tidbits about the people involved, or Schindler, or whomever. Go ahead and hit me in the comments. It would be great. It would be greatly appreciated. So yeah, that is my review of the movie. Excellent. I mean, I think it has a 98% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which, that doesn't mean the movie is good or bad, what Rotten Tomatoes says, but, it's a good gauge. And usually when things are that highly rated, then it must be kind of good, at least. And this was very good. So yeah, if you're here, thanks for watching. If you watched the reaction as well, thanks for watching. And I will see you until next video. And remember, until then, easy does it.